All right, we are live for the 64th podcast of the.
Let's Go episode of the Let's Go podcast.
What did I say?
You said,
64th.
yeah, podcast.
I didn't have coffee yet. I have my New York Mets coffee mug.
Look, we're matching right now.
That wasn't planned. Oh my God, that's funny.
We're not planned. She rocks constantly, so we appreciate that. We're here with another edition of our Week 7 Power Rankings. This might be the most
The first
controversial.
edition of the Week 7 Power Rankings. We're both making
What did I say?
mistakes all over the place. Another edition
Oh,
of our Week 7 Power
oh,
Rankings.
another edition of our Power Rankings. This one's Week 7. This one is probably the most controversial, the most talked about. So, hopefully, Dave, you put a good little line on the put it
Okay.
out saying must listen.
Did you get a
It'll start
sponsor
on
for it?
I didn't get a sponsor for it, no.
We
But
should have.
we did, and we'll be announcing it next week. HSL is very, very proud to have gotten a league sponsor for the springtime. HSL league sponsor. B, we are very proud to have gotten our HSL softball sponsor for the springtime, sponsoring our spring softball league. And C, we're also very proud to have gotten a corporate sponsor for the whole 2025 season. So we're making moves here at the HSL. We appreciate all of our sponsors, and we cannot wait next week to really show off all that they have. I'm actually planning a couple of visits to a couple of these locations, Dave, to come in person, get some videos of the actual facilities and everything that these sponsors do. And we cannot wait for the relationship to get underway. Clip that. Anyways, so we're here and we're back. Week 7 power rankings. It'll
Wait,
start
just
off
before
slow.
you start, I just want to
Yeah.
bring up one other thing, which is that Avi and I have been monitoring the forecast obsessively for March 9th, and the news has gotten better and better the last couple of days. It's 47 degrees, a high of 47 Sunday, March 9th, and we're now officially in a 9-day forecast range, so things are
Pretty
looking
crazy.
good.
Pretty crazy.
It says wind 14 miles, but we'll keep monitoring over the next few days. But opening day of softball is coming, and next week we're going to have two power rankings, basketball and softball.
Yeah. The question is, do we
And
separate them?
I don't know. And I just want to point out that there was a poll in the community a few weeks ago whether or not we'd be starting March 9th. And every single member of the community, except myself, you, and Mo Feintach, I think, said we would not be playing on March 9th. The conditions would be too bad. But looks like we're going to be playing softball March 9th. Very excited.
Edelman has a knack for predicting these things.
He's
He's
like Roger Goodell.
We do have to stop, but very quickly, I remember either it was Sach Felberg or maybe Steve Powell or someone was telling me that, or maybe it was even Adam Hoffman. They were saying, last year, the night before opening night, March 9th. So we had March 10th opening night last year. It was pouring rain all day on Shabbos, all night. It was freezing. And they're apparently in the Bombers chat, they're talking, what the heck's Edelman doing? What are we getting ourselves into with him being the commissioner? And then, the next morning they show up to the field. It's cold, but it's sunny. The field is perfectly dry. The turf field, there's nothing wrong with the field. And then they look back, and now they tell me that's how we knew that things would work out. All right, on to the power rankings.
Down to business. Let's go.
Staying at 14 is MS Motors. They did play probably their most competitive game in the last 4 weeks. They played against Gordon Companies, who needed to win. They got the win. And believe it or not, Gordon Companies, if the season would end right now, they would sneak into the playoffs. So with all losing, Jack Ross and the boys are back in the playoffs for now. But MS Motors will stay at 14. Coming in at 13, Addictive Ad, Simchas by Shloyo, lost to under 5'10 Pipe Doctor by 30 points. Caleb Powell and the boys did what they needed to do. Addictive Ad, Simchas by Shloyo, I still believe is the best 0-6 team I've ever seen. They have a bunch of solid players. They just stick in there for a little bit, and then they lose it. They just don't have the chemistry. I don't know what it is, but 0-6, they remain the only winless team in the HSL. They'll remain 13. Staying at 12 is Annie's Kitchen La Pizzeria. Their whole team had a wedding last night. Props and major props to Daniel Ibrahimi. I didn't get any message from this week about how making me feel guilty to have to move the game. He got a couple guys from Great Neck. He got a couple guys from the Five Towns. He had a really good team on the floor. Probably even better than their actual team. But I didn't have to hear a word from him. And by the way, learn from that, guys. A lot. There are good. It's 8-game season. There are going to be games where your team might not be able to make it. There are a million people out there who want to play ball. He got a good team. They put up a good fight. It was a close game down to the wire. Ultimately, they lost the day 3 rides to fly, but they kept it close against a good team. Day 3, Shimmy David had a fantastic game. Day 3 was missing. Day 3 rides to fly were missing a couple players, but they kept it close. So they'll stay at 12. Coming in at 11 is Barbacoa, who also lost to Royal Adjuster. It was Jonathan Baez, our boy Mr. DeVere, who came on the podcast a couple episodes ago, and Captain Shoshan, who was not there once again. We hope to see him again soon. Um, they dominated. They won by 50 plus for the second straight week. They won by 85 2 weeks ago, and they won by 50 this week. So we'll get into it at the end of the podcast, as we're expecting that to come to a very strong halt next week with potentially what could be the game of the HSL regular season history, the best game we ever had. So they're going to remain. Barbacoa remains at 11. Although, if Barbacoa has one win, and there are a lot of teams with 2 wins, some of which are actually in the playoffs, if Barbacoa can win this coming week, Z Cone will be back for the final week to qualify for the playoffs, and things get a little interesting with them. So look out for that. Coming in at 10 is Gordon Companies, who will remain at 10. They beat MS Motors. I don't really take much. I don't really take much. What's the word? Much. What's the word? I don't take much. What's the word? Take much something into that. What's the word?
Stock?
Yeah. I don't take much stock into that. It was a good win. Jack Ross had, I think, 17, 18 rebounds. Had a really good game. But they'll remain at 10. Staying at 9. So we're still the same. 5 in is Law Offices of Roman Aminoff, Boris M. Tax Planning. Shout out, by the way, and Dave, you don't know this. My
Mm.
cousin, in my opinion, the best player in the Yeshiva League, Ezra Stern, came down to play for Law Office of Roman Aminoff, Boris M. Tax Planning. He came with his friend, I forget his last name, also a good player. They're both playing the Yeshiva League. They played against Link Home Care, who was missing Wasser and Allswing. And as usual, Link Home Care came in, all cocky and fell down by, I think, 10 points with 8 minutes to go. Then Pacey Jacoby, Yossi Levenger, and their new guy they got, the center, to replace Allswing, was a big dude, ended up storming back as always. You'll see the highlights. It was really frustrating for me. Once again, Link Home Care comes in with a not such great squad. Looks like they're dead in the water, and they somehow pull it off. Shout out to my cousin Ezra Stern, though, from Law Office Roman Aminoff, Boards and Tax Planning, officially now HSL's newest highest scorer in a game. 38 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Phenomenal game. There was no one big enough on the court to stop him. So shout out to Ezra, and we hope to see you many more times. We also hope to see you. I feel bad. Ezra was devastated. I was by my cousins for Yontif a few months ago, and I was or there by my mother. I got into a fight with them. How they claimed that Ezra would dominate against guys like Wasser and Allswing, and they also claimed that the All-Star Yeshiva League team would dominate the All-Star HSL team. And I was taking Pacey Jacoby and Allswing about it after. He's like, they're a complete joke. So I brought my cousin Ezra over to them, and they're having it out a little bit after the game, and they're like, let's do it. Allswing's like, I'll put 10 grand down. And then I threw a comment out, but Wasser said he won't do it because it's a lose-lose. And as my cousin's like, what a baby, whatever. So I would love to make that happen. We could really make that huge. Especially imagine we get the whole Yeshiva League crowd into this. They're diehards, the high school kids who are, fans of the Yeshiva League. I think it'll be very, very awesome. But anyway, shout out to Ezra. They did lose ultimately to Link. They'll stay at 9. Coming in at 8 and staying at 8. And this is before we get a little interesting. Coming in at 8 and staying at 8 is Hab Construction. Hab Construction lost to Jules by DK. They stuck around. Again, they were missing a lot of their better guys. They lost by 15 or so. Julie DK is a good team. We'll stay them at 7 and 8. Coming in at 7 and staying at 7 is Day 3 Rise to Fly. Now, a couple of them were chirping me yesterday. How do you put us at 7? We're tied at... And Dave, you could let me know. We're tied at first place in the division. Day 3 Rides to Fly currently 5-1 through 6 games, tied with Link Home Care for first place in the division. Link will have the 1 spot because of the tiebreaker, but I still have them at 7. They're a very good team, and they win the games they need to win. The only game they played, Link Home Care, that was a super, competitive team, really top tier, at least from my memory, they lost. And it's a really deep top 7. So yes, they're tied in first place. I still believe they deserve the 7 seed. Dave, you have any thoughts? Does that make sense to you?
Until you play the big boys, you can't really move around in the power rankings. That's the way I see it.
Day 3 is playing in a very weak division. They did beat Royal Adjuster without Baez and without these high school kids.
And I'll just say, Dylan Kaufman had a lot of complaints about his power ranking, and I kept saying to him, you have a big opportunity next week to make some noise against the big boys, and I haven't heard what their ranking will be, but they did make some noise, and I think they'll be rewarded. So I'd say the same thing for Day 3 Rides to Fly. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that they haven't been tested, but it also makes sense because it's a famous thing that you got to play against better competition to get better. and to make sure that you can succeed in the playoffs and go deep in the playoffs.
Yes, agreed. And by the way, the AT Rights to Fly has a path to the 1 seed because Link Home Care is playing Baez and the boys this coming week. We'll get into that. And they're playing the final week against a really top team, either the 1 or 2 seed in the other division. So, Day 3 Rights to Fly, if they could win their Week 7 game, which they should, they have a potential path. They went out and Link drops one game, and they win the Wall Street Grill dinner, which is a very big prize for a lot of these teams. Coming in at 6 and dropping, you don't see this much, dropping 2 seeds in the power rankings is Jules by DK. They won. They beat Half Construction. They won by 12 or 13 points. They're currently 4-2. There's a lot of 4-2 teams, a lot of 1-4, a lot of 2-4 teams. 4-2. They do drop 2 spots. The reason is I was more impressed with the 5 teams above them. Under 5-10 Pipe Pack, they're coming in at 5, also dropped 2 spots. They beat Dick DeBad, Simple by Shloyo, who's a winless team. They crushed them as they should. Why did they drop 2 spots? Because I was more impressed with these final 4 teams. So now we get to the final 4, and these are things that get interesting. Coming at 4 in the power rankings and moving up 1 spot or 2 spots is Royal Adjuster. Now, I finally got to see Royal Adjuster at full strength, and yes, they played 2 very bad teams. With Jonathan Baez and these 2 high school kids and guys like Dvir, and if Shoshan comes back, and what's his name, the DJ, do you remember what his name is? Forgetting his name.
The DJ, the music
Tabali,
DJ?
Tabali. One player of the week 1 week. They're not just fantastically good. They're pressing every time on defense. Off the rebound, they're all the way on the other side of the court right away. They every single time they're pushing the ball down the court. They're just playing on another level than most other teams, another speed. You say like in an NBA team, the worst NBA team will play against the best college team. The worst NBA team will win because they're on another level, another speed, or another, that's why
Another dimension.
That's why I view Royal Adjuster with their full team. They'll come in at 4. Why are they 4 and not 2 or 3? Because I don't trust that they'll show up. I don't. They've showed up 2 or 3 times out of 6
They
games.
also haven't really been tested yet.
Yes, correct. With their full team, they have not played a good team yet. Correct. Yes.
So
their full team actually played
70. They have 70-point blowouts, but
Correct. I was just very impressed, and I see them playing, and they look like another. Could be looked that way because they played against bad teams. And we'll get into it in a second. We have around 7-8 minutes left for this podcast. Coming in at number 3, and this is going to blow some brains. Olam Realty, for the first time since dropping out of the 1 seed 3 weeks ago, they have now dropped out of the 2 seed. Olam Realty drops to 3. Benjamin Roberts, Elad Navon,
Nathaniel Kvittel is
he's fuming. His head is exploding. Olam Realty have been talking to me all season how they're missing this guy. He's a fantastic defender. By the way, he's a fantastic defender. Then they're missing their 6-man. By the way, he's a great player. They had their full squad. And they played against Dylan Kaufman and the Fly Vipers. And Dave, you were there. And Dylan Kaufman and the Fly Vipers are missing 2 players, one of which might be a top 5 player in the league. Not just on in the league. The other one is a really good player. He's got size. He's a great shooter. And Dylan Kaufman, Noah Aaron, these guys, they're up by 4, 2 minutes left. Granted, Olam Realty did what they had to do, and they did what good teams do, and they found a way to win. But from what I saw, Olam Realty at real strength, full strength, everyone there, full squad there, they barely pulled it off. And the Fly Vipers are missing arguably a top 5, top 10 player in the league. That does not deserve to remain in the 2 seed. Olam really down to 3. And
you know what's really funny though? I love Benjamin and I love the guys on that team, but it's like they can't please us. It's like they beat Link. We're like, you're dropping in the power rankings. They beat Dylan's squad. They're dropping in the power rankings. If they win any more games,
team in the league.
If they win any more games, they're going to be the 5, 6, 7 in the power rankings.
They're 6-0, by the way. They're the only undefeated team in the league. No one else is undefeated. Number 3.
I mean, they're going to win the championship, but they're going to struggle. Going to be like, Benjamin, I'm sorry. We have to drop you to number 7 in the power rankings. We don't like the way you won. All right, sorry. It's pretty funny.
That's funny. It's a good
At least
clip.
Dylan is not going to harass me this Shabbos. We're having a big Shabbos here.
Right.
So
Dylan
far as
Kaufman,
tells.
after week 2, I think week 1, I had Dylan at number 9 in the power rankings. And Dylan's like, he sent me a message. I don't have time. I would find out. I don't have time. It's like, Avi, it's like, that's messed up. We're going to prove you wrong. And with 2 weeks left of the season, Dylan and the Fly Vipers come in, moving up 4 spots. I think it's our biggest jump we've ever had. to the number 2 seed. They are. I've been saying it the last couple weeks. I think they're the most underrated team in the league. I don't think so anymore. I think they're pretty much rated. I think they, again, played Ulm Realty, was a fantastic team, and they were right there with them. They should have beat them. They had a couple of bad decisions towards the end of the game. They're a really good team. I cannot wait for them to be tested. And this week they will be tested again, by the way. And if they don't show up this week, they could fall right back to 6 where
Who
they
they
were
playing
last
this
week.
week?
We're gonna do that second. But shout out to the Fly Vipers, number 2. Coming in number 1 is Link Home Care. Once again, coming in cocky as always, without Wasser, without Allswing. They played Kraft, who is officially the best captain at bringing ringers. Good for him. It's an on-rostered league. Love the loophole. You found it. You got it. I applaud it. I brought my cousin down, who dominated, of course, Ezra Stern, as per usual. And Link pulled it out. It was a crazy game. Stay tuned for the highlights coming up to Shabbos. So that's the power rankings. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, Benjamin. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings, Caleb Paul. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings to any of the teams that I dropped. I think it's pretty fair.
Wait, what number was
We
under
got
510 Pipe Doctor?
they
Number
moved down
4?
2 seats to 5.
They're
We
at
got Link
5.
at 1, Fly at 2, Ulm at 3, Royal at 4, under 510 at 5, Jules by DK at 6, and Rides to Fly at 7. Those are my top 7 teams. Any one of those teams, I think, could beat each other on any given day.
All right. It's interesting. I was thinking about Caleb's squad the other day. They had so much attention on them last season, and this season they barely. They're sort of going about their business very quietly, silent assassins.
Funny, they are, and they're much better than they were last season. It's not even close. Jordan Appel, Jaime Salem, way better.
Yeah,
Way more
it's
talented than they
interesting.
were last season.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now there's a couple of notes, a couple things to look out for. We have 4 minutes left. 2 matchups this week. Probably the biggest matchups, the biggest regular season games we had all season. Sunday, March 2nd, in a Har Torah at 8:35. We have under 510 Pipe Doctor and the Fly Vipers. Under 510 Pipe Doctor with a win will clinch a bye. Will clinch a top 3 seed and will be straight into the quarterfinal round. The Fly Vipers need a win and then 85-90% chance they're in. If the Fly Vipers lose to under 510 Pipe Doctor and Jules by DK beat Addictive Ads, they should. Addictive Ads by Shlomo Soyo, who haven't lost yet. Then the Fly Vipers cannot get a bye. So that's a huge game. Both are playoff. Both two.
Jaime's a big guy.
Plays.
Oh, I haven't
Jaime's
yet met Jaime yet. Okay, to Caleb.
Get
Didn't he?
post.
Didn't Caleb put the ball in?
Yeah, oh, to Caleb. Yeah. He's a fantastic player. So that's one matchup to look out for, which is going to be a fantastic game. The other match to look out for, which again could potentially be the regular season game of the HSL history, assuming that these boys show up. Ari Allswing came to the game last night. He told me, Avi, just for you. He's like, he said he's really hurt. He said, I'm doing everything I can to get myself ready for that game next week against Royal Adjuster and Baez. And he had to check into the game to start last night because Link only had 4 guys. Pacey Jacoby and his friend Landers are both on the Landers team, the Turo team, the college, D3 or D4, whatever you want to call it team. They had a game at 6 o'clock, which probably I failed to mention. Link Holmgren still won, and those guys just had a game at 6. They came running over after, so Pacey's friend got there a little bit late. So Ari was coming to coach, as he usually does, and he had to check in. So I was like freaking out. I'm like, Ari, just walk up and down the court. Don't do anything. He still managed to grab like 4 boards, hobbling up down the court in sweatpants and a sweatshirt. But so Ari also is doing everything he can to get ready for the game. It's March 6th, Thursday night, 9 o'clock. Link Holmker, Royal Adjuster. I'm sure we're going to preview the game more this week. I definitely want to. I would love to get one guy from each on the podcast, potentially. But that could boil down. I have guys from Royal Adjuster telling me that if Baez is playing, it won't even be close. I have guys from Link Holmker telling me that Baez is overrated. He's a really good player. But
somebody else said that. I won't say who. Somebody on I'm trying to remember. I was there last week. I'm not going to say what team they were on. They're like, Baez stinks. Baez is horrible. And I'm like, okay.
They're not horrible, but there are guys that say that, the Wasser versus Baez matchup should be one for the century. If we're gonna see that. Wasser is a premier defender. Baez is a premier player. I wouldn't say
I have a
Baez is a
question.
premier defender.
Wasser never had real coaching?
No.
Baez must have, right? He played in Israeli professional leagues.
He played ball in Israel for 8 years. Well, that's what makes Wasser so special.
Right.
That's why guys get offended. I keep on telling guys, Wasser is, so much more impressive because he's your classic yeshiva guy. Oh, what do you mean? Yeshiva guy. I mean, the guy is still in yeshiva now. He was always in yeshiva. He never played in the yeshiva league. He never played he played in the JSL a little bit. He played in some leagues growing up, but I'm sure in Israel he played in the basketball league there. But that's what makes him really special. So that's a huge matchup to look out for. And before we sign off, which we're going to in a second, and you know, we're really, really, really. I've never been more excited for an HSL Basketball Week before. I'm super excited. Let's go through a couple of these standings. Let's go through a couple of the standings quickly, just because I want to show you guys how close, um, how close we are with 2 weeks left. So in the King Ventures division, we have Ulm Realty 6-0. They're in control. They went out. They get the 1 seed. Under 510 Pipe Doctor at 5-1. Jules by DK and Vly Vipers at both at 4-2. Those three teams are fighting it out for 2 playoff spots. Like I mentioned before, we have under 510 versus Vly Vipers versus the Vly Vipers this week. That's gonna be huge. Then we have in the Wall Street Grill division, Link Home Care and Day 3 Rides to Fly tied at 5-1 for the 1 seed. But then at 4-2 is Royal Adjuster. If Royal Adjuster beats Link Home Care this week, they then go to 5-2, and they have the tiebreaker over Link because they would have beat them. But Link has a tiebreaker over D3 Rights to Fly because Link beat them. So then we're getting into a lot of tiebreakers. So a lot going on at the top. And at the bottom, before we log off, we currently have 3 2-4 teams, and we have 3 1-5 teams. And then we have 1 0-6 team. 7 teams, right? Take out the 0-6 team. We have 6 teams that are either 1-4 or 2-5, right? Sorry. Yeah, 1-4, 1-5, or 2-4. So 2 of those 6 teams make the playoffs. So attention to all the 1-5 teams in this league right now, with 2 games left. You guys are still 1 game out of 2 playoff spots with 2 games to go. So you never want to be in a 1-5 spot, right? It's not a good spot to be in. You feel like the whole season was a failure. But the way the league has panned out, you want to sneak into the wild card, you're 1 game out with 2 games to go. Go win your games, and you'll probably make the playoffs. So for every team other than Addictive Ads, Simchas by Shloyo, even them at 0-6, theoretically can make the playoffs. Still, they're not officially mathematically eliminated. You want to make the playoffs? Go win your games. It's as simple as that. And that's how we'll sign off. So that's it. Thank you, Dave.
By the way, one final note. I was just texting with Ariel, and he said about the schedule. We're about to put out the first 2 week schedule for softball. He said,
Yeah.
the forecast is meaningless until March.
Oh.
He said the schedule is meaningless until March 4th. So, not the schedule, the forecast. So, the 47 on Sunday, March 9th, he claims doesn't mean anything yet.
I guess we'll have positive vibes.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the podcast.
All right. Looking forward. Everybody have a great Shabbos.
Thanks.